and the Southeast Asia Center. Last year's inaugural symposium was a great success, and we are thrilled that the partnership has continued this year for today's event, and we're hopeful that it will continue far into the future. So with that, let me introduce Dr. Celia Lau to give the opening remarks.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Bapak-bapak, ibu-ibu sekalian, selamat datang di Indonesia. Di Seattle, where are we? We're in Seattle. I've heard that so many times like that I said it wrong. Di Seattle. Okay, so great. Thank you all for coming. On behalf of the Southeast Asia Center, I'd like to welcome everyone to the University of Washington and our conference, Indonesia, Past, Present, and Future. That sort of covers it all, I hope. The Southeast Asia Center has deep commitments to Indonesian studies. We have 7 full-time faculty members who study Indonesia and a vibrant Indonesian language program, as you all know, led by Professor Pali Sanjaya. All of these faculty and resources here at the University of Washington are dedicated to expanding knowledge of Indonesian history, language, culture, policy, and the environment to a broad group of undergraduate and graduate students, both American and Indonesian, and to the wider public in the Pacific Northwest region of the United States. We hope that through our work we can enhance mutual understanding and respect between the United States and the people of Indonesia. In making this mission possible, we could not do it without the assistance of a community of supporters. I would especially like to thank the Consul General of the Republic of Indonesia, the Honorable Mr. Ardi Hermawan, for his support of Indonesian studies at the University of Washington. Thank you. We would also like to thank the other staff of the Indonesian Consulate who have worked for a long time with our center. The Indonesian Consulate has always been a strong supporter of our program in many ways, including this conference and another successful one that we had last year. Other Indonesian-related events, including the Keraton event run by the Indonesian Students Association, and of course help with our research and study abroad community, assisting them to receive the appropriate visas and permission for their ongoing work in Indonesia. We do hope that this collaboration with the Indonesian Consulate will continue to prosper and support the development of Indonesian studies here at the University of Washington and in this region of the United States. We do also have one exciting way that our connections will continue next year. That is Consul Bernard Lucy. Where's Bernard? There, yes. Will be joining the PhD program of the Jackson School of International Studies. So we look forward to having him here. No, we're confident. Yakin. Yeah. So there are also some others the center would like to thank. We couldn't have done this without all the dedicated work of Wu Pali, who's committed to making Indonesian studies here at the University of Washington vibrant. We also like to thank the Department of Asian Languages and Literatures for co-sponsorship of this event. The department has been strongly committed to supporting Indonesian language learning on this campus and also to supporting Indonesian events here at UW. And I would like to thank the staff of the Southeast Asia Center. You've met Shannon Bush, our new managing director. Sarah Homer, who's not here, has also worked hard on this event. And we have Adrian Alaria, who is our new graduate program assistant, and we're very happy to have him here working with us today. Finally, I'd like to welcome all the speakers who will be presenting today. We, of course, couldn't do it without you, and we're really excited that you're here and to hear what you have to say. So, terima kasih atas semuanya, and selamat menikmati conference ini. Thank you.
Terima kasih.
Thank you, Dr. Lau. And now I'd like to welcome the Honorable Consul General Bapak Ardi Hermawan to the podium.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the office of the Consulate General in the UDEF. Thank you, Dr. Lau. Thank you for all of the committee. Thank you for Ibu Pauline, of course, and all the staff from the Southeast Asia Centers, University of Washington, also to the Department of Asian Language and Literature. This is actually the second symposium we have in this beautiful University of Washington. The previous last year's is about the de-radicalization, the radicalism, and that was one of the good, and I think it's one of the best that we have from the Consul Generals of having the kind of the symposiums. And when last year's, at the end of last year, when Pak Bernard, our Chargé d'Affaires of the Consulate Generals next year is in the UDEP, for the Consulate of Indonesia. We are proposing the Indonesian past, present, and futures. The reason why we are having the kind of the symposium is that just to show the diversity. If all we are talking about last year is about how to radicalize the radicalism of Islam in the context of Indonesia and also in the context from the American point of view. Today's we are going to have the Indonesian past and present and futures because the subject is so diverse. The topic is so diverse, and of course those who are presenting all the topics is also diverse. Not only is from the political point of view, from the cultural point of view, from the Islamic point of view, but also one new is from the Indonesian Orangutan point of view. This is a good subject because not many, even Indonesia knows to what extent the Indonesian, the NGOs and Jamartin, they have had a lot of program to show to us how the orangutan is also one of our subject to be survived. Because if there is no orangutan, Sihite argument is if there is no orangutan, there is no orang. You know, orangutan is orang and hutan. If those are not combined, then orang will be not there if there is no hutan. So this is the argument. I don't know. We can ask Pak Jamartin, but the other topics like we're going to have the student panel. So from Desi and also Mas Adi. But of course we thank that Professor Sirs have had time with us, and also Professor Anwar and Pak Sihite, Desi and Adi. Other than that, I would like also to, this is a good time actually, one of the good opportunity for me, myself, that I would like to inform that this is my last year. So it's going to be, my tenure is going to be end of this year, and I'm going to be back to Jakarta at the end of, in the earliest, the first week of next January. But I bring with me now Pak Hangiro. Pak Hangiro was my deputy, so I would like him to introduce, I would like to introduce to him what we have done so far with the UDAP. So if there is new Consul Generals, or there is no Consul General, but at least Pak Hangiro will be in charge. So I would like to have the kind of the symposiums or whatever in whatever topic that we're going to have next year is going to be continuous, because this is one of the good way of the public diplomacies of our ministries, how to ask to give more disseminations about Indonesia, because Indonesia is not only about the numbers of islands, it's not only about the numbers of Muslim communities and the other numbers, but this is also the diversity that we're going to have. One of the new things that I would like to inform you, because other Indonesian fact maybe you have already known, that last July we are already registered the numbers of Indonesian islands, the UN, one of the 11 UN commissions on the registrations of or the names of the island. So we have to underline that the numbers of island in Indonesia nowadays that has been registered with the names is 16,056 islands, all with the names. So I don't know whether it's going on the tide season and then the numbers will decrease, or but at least we have the number, because the 17,336 island that usually to be known is actually 6,000 of them are without names. But now we are registered to the UN, so the Indonesian island is 16,056 islands with the names. Again, I thank you, give a big appreciations to the UDEC. I hope that this is not the second or the third or the fifth or the last we're going to have with the programs in the UDEC. And I also congratulate Pak Ben for having the next PhD. I heard that PhD is about 12 years, so so at least Pak Anggiro and Pak Ben will be representing us here, and of course with all of the. We have present is also Pak Cipung. Pak Cipung is one of the eldest Indonesian in Seattle. So he is from the IPTN Befwan and the PPPT. So I hope the symposium is going to have a good presentations, and the important things that I would like to have Indonesia once or twice in every year has to be presenting in the UDEC in whatever occasion, symposium. Of course, with the Kraton we have every year, but other than that, I hope that it's going to be more and more Indonesian here, not only the student but also the kind of the festivities, symposiums and seminars. Again, I thank you, the Southeast Asia Centers, the UDEC, and all of the participants, of course, all of the speakers who really would like to give their support for this symposiums. Thank you and selamat pagi. Terima kasih.
So we're ready to begin with the first session of the morning. I'd like to introduce the moderator for this session, Dimas. Dimas Romanhan is a second year MA student. Sorry, Dimas. I always just call you Dimas. Second year MA student in the Jackson School of International Studies program for Southeast Asian Studies. He holds an MA in Education from the Universitas Negeri Malang, Indonesia, from 2016. Dimas, welcome to the Sorry.
Thank you, Shannon. Good morning, everyone. It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker today, Professor Laurie Josiers. Is the author and editor of numerous books and articles about history, literature, and the politics of empire in 20th and 21st century Indonesia. Her publications include Shadows of Empire, Colonial Discourse, and Japanese Tales, which won the Hadibenda Book Award of the Association for Asian Studies in 1999. She is also the editor of Fetishizing the Feminine in Indonesia, 1996, and Knowing Southeast Asian Subjects, a State of the Field book that appeared in 2007. Laurie Josiers is the Walter Family Endowed Professor of History in the University of Washington History Department, where she teaches critical historiography, feminist methodologies, and Indonesian histories. Her latest book, situated Testimonies, Dread, and Adjustment in an Indonesian Literary Archive, published by University of Hawaii Press 2013, looks at psychoanalysis as a transnational discourse of desire in colonial and post-colonial Indonesia. This book was selected as a Choice Outstanding Book in 2015. Laurie Josiers' most recent work is a co-edited collection on the politics of storytelling in island imperial formations, under review for a special issue of the journal Positions Asia Critic. Professor Lodi shares. It's our pleasure to introduce our second speaker, Professor Etin Anwar. Professor Anwar is an associate professor and the chair of Religious Studies Department at Hobart and William Smith College in Geneva, New York. She received her PhD from Philosophy Department, Philosophy, Interpretation, and Culture program from Binghamton University, New York in 2002. She also earned a certificate in feminist theory. Her teaching interests include journeys and stories, gender and Islam, playing the ethical debates in medicine, Islam and environment, gender and globalization, Islamic mysticism, women's studies, community resilience, and internet activism. Professor Etin Anwar.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you very much for having me today. It's really an honor for me to be here, to be part of the conversation. The title is very broad, to capture the spirit of past, present, and future. I did my research for 10 years. If you look at some confusion, it reflects my own confusion in doing this research. Basically, it is going to be the question that I've had for a long time. If you were growing up in early 1990s, you would come across into Ulumul Quran. At that particular time, there were a lot of questions about the compatibility between Islam and feminism. And that question stays with me for the next 20 years, or maybe more. This is my research question. What is the relationship between Islam and feminism? I'm going to show you a lot of pictures. I will not explain all the pictures, but you can ask afterward the meaning of the pictures and why they are there. So I'm going to escape all the pictures, just stick to the material. The question is whether or not feminism and Islam are compatible, and whether the relationship between Islam and feminism has changed from time to time. And I think the second question, what is the nature of the changing relationship between Islam and feminism? From the very beginning, there are 4 answers. Whether the relationship is parallel, whether the relationship is separate, whether the relationship is convergent, whether the relationship is divergent. So my job is basically going to explain the goals of the presentation. It is very ambitious. But again, I told you earlier, this is 10 years project and I have to tell you in 20 minutes. But that's fine. I'm speaking to smart audiences, so that's good. I would like to contribute into the debate on the compatibility between, or maybe not compatibility, incompatibility between Islam and feminism. At the same time, I would like to see how equality is debated from the past, from early 1900 to contemporary now, the future maybe. I would like also to show the changes from 1900 to 1990. The span of my research is about 90 years. But then I'll show you how I how I cope with these 90 years of time. Earlier we heard about spirituality, why spirituality is important to Indonesians. I'll show you that the feminist argument for equality is also important. I think that is the starting point for me in 1990s when Ulumul Quran, the magazine, talks about the spiritual equality between men and women. And at that particular time, it was the departure for my research. My contribution to this project is going to be the systemization. How do I systemize the relationship, the changing relationship between Islam and feminism? Why Islamic feminism? In Indonesia, I would say that there is no coherent effort to create a scholarship on Islamic feminism. We have a lot of them piece by piece. We have the magazine, we have books, we have novels, but then we don't really see the genealogy, the beginning of the relationship between Islam and feminism, and then how Islamic feminism emerged in 1990s, in early 1990s. When the Western scholar came to Indonesia and they studied Indonesia, not all, I give the examples only, I'm sure over here they're all good. White, for instance, looks at women's movement, Aisyah in particular, in Indonesia, and toward the end she concludes that Aisyah doesn't have any character of Islamic feminism or of feminism because Aisyah members are lacking in authority. And then we can expand that to NU, to Fatayat, to Muslimat. We could expand that to Persistri. In my research, I have written, as part of my project, Muslim women movement, especially Aisyah, Muslimat, and Persistri. So I tried to be consistent from the emergence of the movement toward now, how the three movements perceive women's rights in Indonesia. When scholar like Wichelen talks about feminism, like many scholars, Mogadam for instance, argue that feminism could only flourish within the secular context. Because if we use feminism within the Islamic context, religion always overweights feminism. And then the critique from the three authors, Blackburn, Smith, and Samshiatun, they argue that most authors, Western authors, come to Indonesia to study women's behaviors within specific cultures. They don't necessarily talk about theology. They don't necessarily talk about how Islamic theology perceives Muslim women. And my interest has been in Islamic theology. However, when I talk about Islamic theology, I'm talking about how Muslim women could perceive equality. At the same time, they are critical toward their own text. My approach is genealogical. It is not historical. I'm not trying to prove about Islamic feminism historically. My approach is looking at Islam in terms of the discourse. When we talk about Islam as a discourse, feminism as a discourse, first of all, I'm going to describe the relationship between Islam and feminism as a discourse. So I'm looking at the pattern, how feminism emerged in 1900, how feminism was discussed in the early 1990s. In genealogy, so if you are familiar with Foucault, I'm talking about Foucauldian genealogy. In genealogy, we are also looking at how language is used, how women are described. Now, when we describe women, we are talking about an insider and an outsider perspective in depicting women. When outsiders look at Muslim women in Indonesia, they are talking about the politics of representation. How do they represent and study Muslim women in Indonesia? An insider like myself, look at Muslim women in Indonesia, I talk from an insider perspective. Is there a difference? I think objectivity really matters. It doesn't matter who talks about Indonesia. What is important is researchers are objective in depicting what is Muslim women and what do they do. In genealogical work also, we are looking at the process. So we identify the language we use and the process of how I would come eventually to the term of Islamic feminism. By identifying and recording the process, eventually I was able to look at the pattern and to systemize the encounter between Islam and feminism. My contribution is going to be the systemization, and if you have read about Islam and feminism, I don't think any work, not because I'm doing it, I have already talked about the systemization. I systemized the encounter into five encounters. the first encounter, I call it the emancipation era. We sometimes forget that we were colonized, and during colonialism, we have what we call colonial feminism. Colonial feminism depicts women in Indonesia as inferior, as the object, and less human. And Indonesian women in particular had to move from the object position into the subject position. And moving from the object position to the subject position is not easy, because it comes with argumentality. We used to be the object of the study, we used to be the object of colonialism, so now Indonesian women have to move beyond the object status into the subject status. And in feminism, we are all familiar with the depiction of the self and the other, and Indonesian women are definitely the other, and they were looked at. I call it representing the other. So Western scholars, in particular, I'm talking about colonial feminism. They look at women in Indonesia as being steeped in adat and religion. And this portrayal is not new, because if you look at women in Egypt, Cromer describes women in Egypt as steeped in adat, the veiling, the seclusion, and many others. So this is common in early 1900, where colonialism uses the logic of inequality to depict third-world women like Indonesians. Kartini is depicted as the first emancipator. Of course, a lot of scholars nowadays would be angry about that, because I think we are trying to Islamize everything. Even, like Kartini read the Quran and read the translation. To me, Kartini was useful in showing that in feminism we are aware about personal consciousness, or consciousnessizing. She has sites in her work where she describes her own experience, her own oppression. She was anti-polygamy. She was looking at Islam as quote unquote oppressive to women, but then what kind of Islam? However, Kartini became the portrayal of emancipator through the language of colonialism. She was constructed to demonstrate emancipation. There are many other examples that I would like to show you here. Dewi Sartika, for instance. She is a Sundanese like myself. I'm from Sunda, from Bandung. I'm Sundanese. Dewi Sartika attempted to educate women, and she argues for women's education, for women's role as teachers, and she described how kaum adat tua, kelompok tua, the elderly in Bandung at the time didn't agree with her. And then there is another example, Rahma El Yunusia. She provides the example of early education for women. And I think if you are trying to find site for Islamic feminism when it comes to education, it starts with Rahma El Yunusia. The motive was very clear: women's education. Women were included. In fact, she created school for women using Islam as the foundation for it. At that particular time, women were not necessarily attending schools, let alone Islamic school. And also, women were afraid to talk about personal needs. In Islam, everything is open to the conversation, especially in fiqh, in jurisprudence. At that particular time, there was also the nationalist movement, and Islamic reformism was part of the nationalist project in Indonesia. What is very, very important is that from both individual pioneers and the nationalism in Indonesia, in my opinion, both movements attempted to pursue emancipation in terms of advancement for all individual, advancement for all being. Now we have to remember also that in colonialism, all Indonesians, whether they are priai or commoners, they are all subjected. They were all subjected through colonial policies. More pictures. The second era was the association era, and this term come from Nyi Suparjo. From 1920s all the way to 1945, 50s, there were a lot of women's movements in Indonesia at that particular time. Not even Indonesia, right? And this term is important. It captures the reality at that particular time where women were very active to engage in public life. Unfortunately, a lot of women's movement at that particular time were sections of male organizations. And you know, from a feminist perspective, when your organization is a section from a male organization, the issue of authority is a big question there. Can do women, or did women have their own agencies? Could they create activities without having the permission from men to engage in activities? For that reason, during even the association era was not seen as the feminist period because of the connection to men. And I think later on I argue that within the Indonesian women's movement or feminist movement, women include men in their rhetoric and their activities. The intertwine between men and women is so hard to separate. Now it is very different with Western feminism, where women had to argue and had to be acknowledged by men. The citizenship right, the right to vote. In America itself, when Elizabeth Cady Stanton, for instance, attempted to introduce women's liberation, men were seen as the oppressors, basically. The association era is very, very important because many women were included in the nationalist movement. Here I talk about Islamic reformism, Islamic organization in terms of nationalism is part of the bigger. So I don't see any contradiction between nationalism and Islamic reformism. I think nationalism is for all movements in Indonesia. That's like the everything. And what is important is the Women's Congress in 1928. In my first chapter, I talk about the result of that Congress, and I'm amazed with the way women spoke about their needs, their rights. At the same time, women also attempted to differentiate between Western and Eastern appropriation. They said education is good, the Western education is good, but wait a second, we cannot adopt everything because it would be going against the Eastern culture. So the Eastern Western distinction existed at that particular time. Many women also adopted the veil, especially among women of the Asia group. Among the Nahdlatul, and I cannot always talk about I cannot talk about NU in particular because Muslimat was basically created later on after the independence. So it would be a generalization to talk about Muslim women at that particular time. But the Aisha's member wore the veil, and there were stories of how women were talking behind the screen, because veiling could also be understood in terms of screen, the dividing space, the divider in a space. And at one point, they were asked to put the divider down and just speak openly. Well, if you are looking at the history, if you look at the history of Indonesia, we have to understand that only the elite have access to power, like usual, even now. And Muslim women were seen and judged in terms of their honor. Kartini was secluded, and a lot of women were not allowed to just go out at that particular time because of the pristine nature of women. So when elite women went out, they were using the screen to protect them. Although eventually the screen was put down. At the same time, in 1930s, during colonialism, the subject and the object were not equal. The Dutch created hierarchy in citizenship, created hierarchy in marriage law too. And when the marriage law came out, it shows that it has been appropriated according to the Dutch need rather than the Indonesians' need. What was happening in the association era is that we see the intersection between Islam and feminism. And Islam and feminism, the relationship is defined in terms of the personal and the political. If you study feminism, you are very familiar with the personal as the political, right? And there were a lot of statements during the association era where women talk about their personal empowerment and their personal problem. Now quickly, I moved into the developmental era. If you pay attention to women's movements, especially since 1928 and on, they were talking about maternal virtue, the importance of maternal virtue for women. The argument for the equality in terms of maternal virtue is common. Even in America in 1910, in 1900, they were talking about maternal virtue. Women are valued on the basis of their roles as mothers and wives. Nowadays, we don't really see that kind of argument because everything is about equality. But long time ago, when women in 1920s attempted to liberate themselves, they said there are problems with women in Indonesia. Abuses in polygamy, abuses in children marriage, abuses in divorce. How do we solve that problem? Okay, women were good wives, good mothers, we solve one problem. Unfortunately, the Odegaard government, the new Odegaard government politicizes the idea of maternal virtue, and we see this in the marriage bill. We see this also in PKK. If you are familiar with Dharma Wanita, the Association for Wife of Civil Servants. So we see the politicization of the maternal virtue. That's the way I call it. Although that is organizations. It has different location. Muslim women organization aspire to Islam. Secular feminists aspire to feminism the way they would understand it. And there were a lot of grievances toward Islam. Veiling is oppressive to women. This is 70s, 80s. What else? Veiling is oppressive to women. Women, if women wear the veil, it would mean that they were submissive. They're submissive to the teaching of Islam. Things like that. And this is the integration era. At that particular time, we see two parallel movements. First, the imposition of maternal virtue, and second, the imposition of Pancasila ideology. Now, what is important is what come out of these impositions. A lot of scholars attempted to think about Islam in terms of ethics. In my opinion, the new order imposed two policies. One, the institution of maternal virtue. The second is the Pancasila institutions. Now, I agree that each Indonesian needs to aspire to Pancasila. That is the uniting factor of our country. At the same time, the imposition is too much. This is the time when we have students who are not allowed to talk politics, to speak politics, to engage in politics. Now, so we have the separation between Islam and politics. It gives two things. First, the movement of correct practice, or the orthodoxy of Islam, one type of Islam. And if you're trying to look for the root for correct practice, you have to go back to the Orde Baru era. At the same time, this is the flourishing of ideas of Islam as ethics, the new Orde Baru. So the separation between Islam and politics fosters two movements. The movement for correct practice, I will not call it radicalism. It is not about radicalism, it's about correct practice. It's about Islamic orthodoxy. They believe in correct practice and they want to execute correct practice, orthopraxis. It is not about, I'm trying to give you some ideas that this is not the site for Islamic radicalism, because Islamic radicalism emerged in connection with movements like Hizbut Tahrir. Tahrir emerged in 1978, and all the underground movements. What is very important from the feminist movement is that the separation between Islam and politics leads to the emergence of comprehensive Islam. Abdurrahman Wahid, I will not talk about it, but for him, Islam as a system has nothing to do with Islam as an Islamic state. For Majid, secularism doesn't mean abandoning religion. And Ibrahim Hussein is important in my work because he insists on reform within Islam. The final era for me was the I cannot say the word, you read it, proliferation era. At this particular time, scholars, feminists, look at Islam and feminism as ethical paradigms. And this is, to me, the convergence between Islam and feminism. Remember, when it comes to feminism, it has a lot of meanings, but the most important, in my opinion, the most important pattern of feminism is about equality in reason, equality in agency. The root is very, very different. In the Western feminism, agency comes from the freedom to exercise what you want to do in life, or freedom from oppression. For Muslim women, freedom comes from the text. Remember, Islam is a discourse, and discourse is in text. And women looks at the Quran. The Quran says veiling is to protect you, to make you more respectful of yourself and others. Of course, there are many interpretations. I don't go there yet, but you can ask me. I also look at in Islam the idea of ijtihad. How can we use ijtihad for feminist agency? How do we look at the concept of tawhid for feminist agency? How do we look at the Quran as the context for agency? So I try to, in my study of the transition from feminist theology to Islamic feminism, I try to look at the roots that the Quran provides for women. Islamic feminism is important for women because it provides avenue for liberation. It provides avenue for recognizing what is important for them and how they could contribute to inclusive humanity. Without the Quran, they don't know how to justify equality. So the Quran is very central to the relationship between Islam and feminism. In fact, in my interview, some women argue that equality comes from the Quran and comes from the example of the Prophet Muhammad. And of course, for many feminists, Muslim feminists, Islamic feminists, they look at the Quran as the source for liberation. because the Quran is very, very important. And there is a specific verse that has been used by feminists to talk about equality. And this particular verse is very, very important. Now, if you are looking at this particular verse, man, believing man and woman, devout man and woman, true man and woman who are patient and constant, who are humble, who are giving, who are guarding themselves, who are fasting, both men and women are going to be rewarded. So, feminists, Muslim feminists, Islamic feminists, look at this particular verse and they find the foundation for equality. The Quran speaks to them, the Quran speaks to their heart, to their mind. It makes sense to be a feminist and to be Muslim at the same time. So, if you think about my own research, my question was, is Islam compatible with feminism? In what way Islam is compatible with feminism? So, Islam and feminism are compatible as ethics, as the ethical paradigm. In my conclusion, so this is my definition of Islamic feminism, refer to Islam as a discourse, narratives and activism of Muslim female scholars and feminist activists. And they use Islam as a frame of reference. Islam as ethics, as I said earlier. And in my research, I also found that the most important contribution of Islamic feminism is the centrality of agency for women. If we are trying to look at agency for women in Islam, we are looking at the contribution of Islamic feminism. At the same time, this is my conclusion, we are looking at the emergence of anti-feminist sentiments. When I did my research in 2006, I found a flyer saying Islamic feminism rob women's future, Islamic feminism change women's nature, and all kind of arguments. What is the point for me to show you, the contribution and the challenge? Because my work and your work have not finished. We need to continue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Etin. I would like to invite a question from our audience. I think we will have sufficient time for, again, 5 questions. Oh, yes, please. I'll start from Pak Jamartin.
Yeah, I only raise one question. When I read a lot of feminism in Indonesia, there is no one try to raise about Jamartin as a part of the study. Because Jamartin not only make the people, she become the commanders or the Aceh warrior. But why it's very limited. Maybe no one raised that part of the study about the feminism.
Thank you. I didn't mention, but in my work, actually, I look at in the emancipation era, I look at 2 movements. One is revolutionary, and the other is cultural education. I didn't put it there, but revolutionary movement includes Jamartin and Tia Christina, Marta. Yeah, that. I cannot remember. I'm sorry. Yeah. So in my work, yes, I've included all the pioneers. When I talk about pioneers, it includes revolutionary women. Yes.
Yes. Next question from Suen.
Hi, Professor Etin. I'm sorry I couldn't be here for the beginning of the talk, but I think I caught the bigger part of it. I'm a graduate student here at the University of Washington. I work with Professor Sears. And I actually do a subfield in Islamic feminism with Sarosa who work at the Middle East Center. So I have 2 questions, and feel free to address them whichever order you see fit. My first question regards the vectors of transmission. So I'm fairly familiar with the scriptural hermeneutics of Islamic feminism, specifically Amina Wadud, Asma Balas, and I'm wondering how much of this scriptural hermeneutics of Islamic feminism, which often originates, basically from students of Fazlur Rahman at the University of Chicago. I wonder how much of this translates back to Indonesia and informs Islamic feminism in organizations that you might not necessarily think of as feminist, like Shia, the NU Women's Wing. There's a whole bunch of them that Rachel Ricardo, I think, wrote about in Mobilizing Piety. And my second question relates to the whole idea of agency. And this is a broad question. I know it's difficult to address directly. But I've been reading Sabah Mahmood's Politics of Piety lately, and she makes a lot of very controversial arguments about how veiling can be a form of exercise of agency as well. And I was wondering what the sort of dominant Indonesian discourses on veiling and agency are in an Indonesian context. Thank you.
Well, that's a dissertation. Okay, with the first question, in my research, the influence comes mostly from Rifat Hassan. This is prior to the publication of Women and Islam by Wadud. This is prior to Barlas or even Mernisi. So in 1994 or 5, Rifat Hassan came to Indonesia and her works were published, and she was interviewed in Ulumul Quran. So if you are looking for the genealogy of the emergence of Islamic feminism, at least in my work, I look at Rifat Hassan. And Rifat Hassan didn't necessarily go back to Rahman, so she didn't really do the hermeneutic. Her approach was in the creation story. But I think she is, in my opinion, the pioneer in bringing the attention to the misinterpretation of the Quran and the abuses of hadith. Only later on, Mernisi gave specific examples of how hadiths were misquoted by scholars. So a lot of writings emerged from Rifat Hassan and later on from Wadud, in my opinion. With regard to the second question, Sabah Mahmood, the politics of piety, I'm trying to remember who would necessarily talk about that book. I can begin with the controversial issue in 1980s, early 1990s, when Wardah Hafiz. You are familiar with Wardah Hafiz, right? Well, if you read Islamic feminism, she was the first to bring the conversation about the relationship between Islam and feminism. Her name is Wardah Hafiz in the Ulumul Quran. And she was rejecting the idea of veiling as a source for agency. She believes that the veiling is part of sociology. It's part of it is not a theological issue. For Mahmood, veiling is a theological issue. Muslim women believe in it. They look at the Quran. The Quran obliges them to wear the veil. Well, for Wardah Hafiz, veiling is a sociological issue. It has nothing to do with religion. And Leila Ahmed also talks about how veiling has nothing to do with religion. In fact, in her book, she said that veiling is not written in the Quran. I don't know which Quran she read. But anyway, so if we think about the transmission of knowledge, I don't see the parallel between Sabah Mahmood and the works by Indonesian women. A piece of anthropology, and it turns out beautifully because she's able to explain how veiling can be experiential. Because it is experiential, it is embodied in daily life, it could be projected into activism. Now, if you look at women, Aisyah, the female section of Muhammadiyah, or Muslimat NU, the section for Muslimat Nahdlatul Ulama, and Persistri, I'll just give you 3 examples because Nahdlatul Ulama, Muhammadiyah, and Persis, Persatuan Islam, are the longest organizations in Indonesia. That is exactly what they do. They believe in the Quran, they believe in veiling. At the same time, they use veiling as a medium for their own agency. So if there is a book by rereading the Quran, Nelly Pander, I can't remember the last name. Ibu Nelly, she is very well known. She does research on veiling and all other issues among younger members of Nahdlatul Ulama Muhammadiyah and what is the younger generation? Fatayat for NU, but for Muhammadiyah was I cannot say. Nishayatul Aisyah. I don't remember the name. But yes, Ibu Nelly would be a perfect reference if you are interested to find out a typical work like Sabah Mahmud. From ladies?
Okay, so we'll invite question from this. Yeah, I think we have time for 2 more questions. Oh,
Someone over here mentioned the new millennial generation in a previous talk. What is the younger generation in Indonesia doing for feminist activism?
There are 3 groups according to the research that I have done. A lot of younger generations study feminism, and they decide that it has nothing to do with Islam. And then other group says, well, yes, Islam say this, Islam say that, but in reality, Muslim women are oppressed. So they leave everything about Islam and choose feminism. And then the third are the group that believe in the compatibility between Islam and feminism. So it depends whom you ask. But in my research, there are three groups. Yeah.
okay. While waiting for the thunder, we have, I think, 3 more questions. Yeah, please.
Hi, Professor. Thank you for the insight. I just would like to see clarification. When you mentioned about Ulumul Quran, is that the Ulumul Quran founded by Prof.
Yes.
Yes. And then the second question: how do you locate PKS women in this discourse? Because I believe they represent a huge number of representation.
Right. Rinaldo's book talks about PKS women in comparison to Fatayat and the other one. Rahima Center. My work stopped in 1995, in the early 1990s. My question was how Islamic feminism emerged. In working using genealogy, I tried to trace back ideas that relate to feminism and start with the emancipation era. Unfortunately, I stopped in early 1990s. So if I were to do, well, Rinaldo has done this, but where would PKS fit into the frame of Islamic feminism? I think according to I'm going to quote Rinaldo. Rinaldo compares Rahima, and she categorized Rahima. If you are familiar with Indonesian women's movements, Rahima was established by feminists who used to be students of who is that? I don't remember the name, but they were part of the group called Fiqh an-Nisa. Who is that? The pioneer for Fiqh an-Nisa, the gentleman who took second wife. You will remember. When the leader for Fiqh an-Nisa group took the second wife, the members, some of the members left the group and started Rahima group. And Rahima is a feminist-driven organization. In my conclusion, I was talking about how Rahima's office was attacked by radical group, saying that this is God work, and you don't do God work, destroying other people. According to the fundamentals, is God work. So according to Rinaldo, in terms of agency, so I'm going to just compare the agency. Agency within PKS is more literal. So they belong to the literalist group. If we are looking, I'm hesitant to talk about PKS as the Islamist group. I think they belong to the new era of Islamism. But then we can talk about moderate Islamism or radical Islamism. But it has to do with the movement of Islam as the political ideology. If you are talking about PKS, certainly PKS has the sparkles for Islam as an ideology. Now, there is nothing wrong with it if they believe in Pancasila, in my opinion, and I think that's also the case for PKS. Overall, I would say that the majority of Indonesians embrace moderate Islam. The majority of Indonesians believe in Pancasila, which is unique because Pancasila is the state ideology and it unifies all groups, whether we are Chinese, whether we are Japanese, whether we are whomever we are in Indonesia. Pancasila protects that right to be an Indonesian, and I think that's the beauty of it.
Yes.
Do you also consider or discuss the different culture or custom among the Indonesian, like Padang or somewhere else where we have different kind of nationalism?
In my work, the book is going to be out from Routledge. Hopefully, I could finish and submit the manuscript. That's the hardest part. Yes, when I deal with Rahma Al-Yunusiyah, I talk about the Minang culture, how women inherit and how it gives power to women. A lot of time power is tied to the ability to have money, not only power, in terms of leadership. So yes, and also when I talk about Japanese, Sundanese, and Minang cultures, how they are different in some way, and how different in terms of matriarchal and patriarchal settings, different in terms of geographical location, different in terms of class too, because Kartini and this is just example. Kartini and Dewi Sartika they both were elite aristocrat, and then and secular too, and Rama Al-Yunusiyah was Muslim and Santri. So that's that not only place but also the geographical location where they were originally working with their own ideas.
Okay, I think we'll have the last question. Or yeah.
With like the practice of polygamy is still
Here we go.
practiced in Indonesia. Is there still how is that with the whole feminism in Islam play?
For PKS, polygamy is justifiable. Again, that the PKS takes the literalist approach to polygamy. But I'm gonna tell you the debate in 1930s about polygamy, and when it started from 1920s, the Women's Congress in 1928 and 1930s, including the marital bill in 1937. I admire the works and the arguments that women have done or had done to talk about polygamy. So we have originally during the association era, women debated about polygamy, and many women, especially from the Islamic groups, the Aisha, for instance, Aisha group justified polygamy. And then one group, Istri Sedar in 1930s argued that polygamy was oppressive to women. So we have Muslim women who argue that polygamy is fine insofar as it is done correctly. But then we have Istisadat who argue that polygamy is oppressive to women in any form. We have to abolish polygamy. The debate didn't stop there because in 1950, so basically, in my opinion, the Indonesian government, especially during the old order, during the Sukarno era, was not able to produce law. So the law that we had was from 1937, where women and men, indigenous men and women, were not seen as equal to the colonials, and the debate was there. In 1950s, the government issued not really a bill. It was an instruction in 1950s. In it talked about giving pension to the children of the second wife, or maybe the third wife, from polygamous relationship. And women were mad at that particular time because it would mean that the government condoned polygamy. And then in there is a marriage bill in 1970s. So from 1937 to 1974, how many years was that? 37 years. For 37 years, the Indonesian government didn't really issue a new bill. And eventually, they issued a new marital bill in 1974, and polygamy was still recognized. It is expected that men receive the permission from their first wife. So it is there always being protected. However, I knew many feminists argue for the abolition of polygamy.
Okay, I think it was our Q&A session for this second session. Thank you very much for Professor Etin Anwar. Thank you very much for very warm discussion, and I even can taste rendang in my tongue. Okay, thank you very much. I'll get back to Shannon.
You too much. And yes, with the rendang comment, we want to thank very much the Office of the Consul General of Indonesia in San Francisco for providing not only breakfast this morning, but the delicious lunch that we can already smell and cannot wait to get into.
And Katia will be our moderator, and let me introduce her briefly. She is a PhD student in the Department of History, specializing in Southeast Asia, specifically Indonesia in the context of the Indian Ocean world. And she received her Bachelor of Arts in Anthropology from University of Chicago in 2011, and MA in History from UW in 2017. And everyone, please come, Katia.
Terima kasih. Selamat siang semuanya. Can you hear me?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, it is my great pleasure to introduce our next speaker today, Dr. Jamartin Sihite. Dr. Sihite is a longtime conservation activist with significant experience and achievements in conserving Indonesia's flagship protected species, Komodo dragon, Varanus komodoensis, Sumatran orangutan, Pongo abali, and Bornean orangutan, Pongo pygmaeus. After completing his PhD in environmental sciences in 2004, Dr. Sihite held key positions in Putri Naga Komodo, the Orangutan Conservation Services Program, PT, Restorasi Habitat Orangutan Indonesia, RHOI, before assuming the role of CEO of BOS Foundation in 2011. Since 2012, under his leadership, hundreds of rehabilitated orangutans have been successfully reintroduced to the natural habitats in central and eastern Kalimantan. Welcome.
Okay, before I presenting this, I want to ask you. A lot of Indonesian people here, you prefer me explain Indonesia or in English?
In English.
Listen. Okay, I'm Jamartin. I'm the CEO in Bosch Foundation, but in many times I never say I'm the CEO. You know why? Because in Bosch Foundation team, we have a lot of good people, amazing people working in the Orangutan. Like in orchestra, there's a good people playing violin, good people playing guitar, they expert on that. My role is something like the conductor. I'm the conductor in Bosch Foundation, not the CEO. The first question is why we have to save orangutan. This is the first question. We have to answer it and then we understand why we have to save orangutan. I'm not the politician. I'm the conservative. The first one, we are 97% similar with orangutan. That's why I love to use t-shirt. I'm 97% orangutan. But at the same time, we destroy their home. Because we are the same DNA, we love the same area. And then we destroy the home. And in the forest, orangutan play the significant role as an umbrella species. They're spreading the seed. At the night, they open the canopy to make the nest. In the morning, the sun can reach the forest ground. It makes the seed good growing, and then make the forest become better. That's why we said orangutan has a significant role to the healthy forest. When we have the healthy forest, what we got as a human? What we got from the forest? This one. There is no one people in the world could living without oxygen. There is no one could living without water. And what's the conclusion? We need orangutan or orangutan need us? We need orangutan. That's why our work is we have to protect orangutan and its habitat. If we not protect the habitat, it doesn't mean we conserve the orangutan. Because orangutan should be orang and utan. If they are in the cages, we have to change the name. Orang cages. This is the head school, the chairman of the school. Okay, now I want to tell you, we work in the Bosch Foundation. Bosch Foundation is NGO, Indonesian NGO. We are not international NGO. We are 100% Indonesian NGO. Start 1991, more than 26 years now. What is our work? Now Bosch Foundation working in the rehab center in Palangkaraya, and the other one in Samboja Lestari, close to Samarinda or Balikpapan. You could come from here to Balikpapan through Singapore or through Jakarta. And we have a 3-block forest that we manage for the release site orangutan. I will tell it later. And there is another forest here. During Suharto, we opened this forest to develop mega rice project. We name it Indonesia language. Sorry for friends not understand Indonesia terminology. 1 juta hektar hutan, sawah, gambut. 1 juta gambut, 1 juta mudara. And let's see. I hope in 30 seconds you can see. It's nice walking in the forest with the orangutan. And in 25 years more, this is the numbers that we rescue. When we rescue them, sometimes we rescue the baby, sometimes we rescue the adult orangutan, sometimes when we rescue, they're already gone, they're already dead. And this is our project in Central Kalimantan and this one in East Kalimantan. It means in totally more than 25 years, we already rescued more than 2,000 orangutan. The big one from the forest we can rescue and then send it to the other forest. But the baby, we cannot send them to forest. Why? Because the baby orangutan still with the mom 7 years. The mom teaches them to be white, how to get the food, how to be survive, how to climb the tree, how many things. And when there's no mom, no one teaches them to be white. No one teaches them living in the forest. When we rescue the baby, we send them to forest, it means we send them to the killing field. That's why, there they go. This is the photo that we took during the forest fire in 2015. Only around 3 weeks before Christmas. And then the forest fire coming in Central Kalimantan, we're doing the rescue, and at the time, just go to the forest without any preparation, and sometimes you have to swimming with the big orangutan. You can see, something like that. But not only the big one, the baby still have. When the baby still coming, not going to the forest, we have to teach them to be white. That's why now we have 650 orangutan in our center, both center, East Kalimantan and Central Kalimantan. And with this big number, now in the world, we are the biggest rehabilitation center in the world. Even chimpanzee rehab center, bonobo rehab center, gorilla rehab center, going together, they cannot beat us. But this is not make us proud. You know why? If in your country, if in one country, they have a big rehab center on drugs, be proud of that? I don't think so. This is something wrong in the conservation project or the conservation activity in my country. As a part of the country, we have to help them, our country, to make it, to fix it, not only discuss it, right? And in East Kalimantan, we have 200, and in Central Kalimantan, we have 400. You can imagine when I talk at the zoo, there's only 5. They spend a lot of money and energy. We have 450 in one center. When I have a meeting in New Orleans last week, with all of the Jews in the United States joined together, discuss about orangutan, and I was presenting that numbers. They asking me how you could handle that. I said, because God gave me. That's the numbers. And in our center, we teach them to be white. Can you say something? Teach them to be white. Please not coming as orangutan because I will teach you to be white. Yeah? Padi teach us more domesticated. But my role, my team role in the forest school is teach the orangutan to be white. And we make the forest school as a curriculum in forest school level 1, level 2, level 3. And after graduate from the forest school level 3 is something like university. We send them to the island like the intern program. Minimize human activity there. After they survive in that, we send them to the real jungle.
The PhD one.
I don't want to say that. Yeah, that's, we have to prepare all of the skill that they could living in the forest. Can you imagine? human become the surrogate mother for the orangutan to teach them to be white. This is not an easy job. As a teacher, a professor in university, it's easy for me to ask him, what do you need to the student? In my forest school, I can ask him, but I don't know what's the answer. That's why I said the best wife in the world is the veterinarian. They could taking care of the animal without asking. You can imagine they can taking care of the husband. This is the skill that we do, and then after 25 years working on that, we know how to deal with it. But I said during the forest fire, a lot of baby coming, and the old baby house that we have to check. And at the time we send requests to have support for other people. And this is the video, short video for 1 minute to show you where's the money going. In the forest group, baby forest group. It's easy. Not only human, but also this is the baby house that we developed after the forest fire. I have to sell it for you. Maybe someone from here already donated to that building. We have to know where is the money that the selling go for. We developed the baby house. They can play in this room during the rainy season. Increase the capacity, but beyond that, we still have forest to teach them to be white.
Mereka sempat berinteraksi dengan lingkungan baru seperti naik pohon, permainan di amusement yang sudah disediakan kemarin. Mereka sangat berambisi lah untuk bermain.
Not only human have the kindergarten school, we have it in the forest. But before I continue my presentation, I want to remind you, please don't look at the eyes of the orangutan. Please don't look at that. No matter if it's baby or the adult one. When you look at the eyes, you will fall in love. You will try like me, more than 10 years. Then after we teach them to be white, and then this is what we're releasing them to the forest. This is what we call it introduction. Age should be adult or semi-adult, sub-adult. They have the skills living in the forest. The other one, this is the, I said the mawas, the hutan gambut, 1 juta hektar, 1 juta manfaat, 1 juta mudarat. We have 300,000 hectares, and then there's 2,000 white orang. Why are we working here? You just want to say, just protect the forest is cheaper than we rehabilitate the orang. Cheaper. Yeah, and then this is the Roy in 2009. Like I explained, yeah, 10 minutes. I hate the numbers. Made me lost. In 2009, we have to establish the company because we want to run the concession for the orangutan. And this is the area, but because NGO could not own the forest concession, so the company. And we put the company, but there's one statute in the company said every shareholders cannot get the benefit. All of the benefits should go to the conservation of orangutan. If you jumping that, become the shareholders, you pay money to buy the forest, you got nothing. Because all the benefit will go to the orangutan. Because we afraid they will cut the forest. This is the forest, the 86, the content asking me. And we still have, this is the side effect. We have the sunbird in our center. But to find money for this animal is very difficult. Why? Because we still name Borneo Orangutan Survival Foundation. There is no Borneo Orangutan and sunbird. This is side effect. And we're working with the community. Why working with the community? Because I want to say one group never talk conservation with the hungry people. That's why we have to work with it. Because the hungry people is close to the angry people. And then this is the orangutan that we cannot release. Because we cannot release that, we have to taking care. This is a tuberculosis area. But we say the name is special care unit. Or the people will angry me because I keep the tuberculosis orangutan. This is something that I'm working together with UC Davis Vet School and Private Center. And then we make the conservation partnership with the palm oil. I want to say, make your friend close and your enemy closer. The CEO in palm oil performance key indicator is just only how much the benefit, not how much the orangutan you save. My job convince them when you save the forest, save the orangutan, there's a benefit for you. That's why we make the, and this is the bottleneck, that's why we need the conservation between the company. And this is the company help us, we buy 700, the company buys 1,500, and then in total we have 2,000 hectares island outside of the concession. I just say, let's become the solution, part of the solution, not only part of the problem. If you want to go sleep well in the night, right? You know, just fighting with us. And then we can release orangutan 100 to 100 days. This is the other one. You make the island here, you cut this forest, make the canal, and you can use the forest for the orangutan. This is owned by the company, 100 hectares. Desi. When we work with the company to save some forest, it's not solving the problem of deforestation, but it solve some problem for the orangutan who stuck in the cages years and years. Climbing the tree teach them to make a nest. This is a lecture on psychology. Psychology. This orangutan named Romeo, 25 years stuck in the cages because of hepatitis. And now we built the island and let them free in the island. This is the island in the company area. They give us, they help us to cut the canal, make the canal. It's not cheap. Not cheap. A lot of money spent on that. This is the new generation of business people in Indonesia, young and try to go beyond the box. And then, ini orang-orang yang living there. Yeah, that's a part of that. This is achievement on us. Achievement not in this part, yeah. In this part is personal achievement. But the achievement is Boston Nation or our work is here. This year we got the brand, the best brand in the world on orangutan, on conservation and animal welfare. Indonesian NGO, local NGO got brand award. I am proud of that. And how you can help? With research station, we need this one. With capacity building, so we start with the vet school in UC Davis, and now we develop an exchange program with some zoo in the United States. Maybe from this campus we can do some, I don't know. And I will invite you to this competition. If you apply and you are the winner, you could come free to the forest like we. You will stay with us around 2 weeks. Going to the forest, releasing orangutan. It's simple. Follow the Facebook, like and share. Follow the boss Instagram, and then apply the ticket. You are the winner, you come. Stay with us. Stay in the night in the forest in the 1,000-star hotel. I can guarantee. Here you can stay in the maximum 5-star hotel, right? In the forest in 1,000-star hotel. This is the result. If you come with us, you will see and then act like us in this way. Releasing orangutan to the forest. Do you want to join? Apply. Okay, 1 minute, but I will take around 1.5 minutes. I don't want to make any conclusion of my speech, of my talk. Just look at the video and listen the song. Siapkan sapu tangan.
Why you look so sad? Tears are in your eyes. Come on and come to me now. Don't be ashamed to cry. Let me see you through. 'Cause I've seen the dark side too. When the night falls on you, don't know what to do. Nothing you confess can make me love you less. I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. So if you're mad, get mad. Don't hold it all inside. Come on and talk to me now. Hey, what you got to hide? I get angry too. But I'm a lover like you. You're standing at the crossroads. Don't know which path to choose. Let me come along. 'Cause even if you're
What is the biggest challenge that you face right now?
To educate people. To educate people that orangutan not a pet, but something should be in the forest. Because now illegal wildlife trading going to Middle East and China, and they use as a pet, and the other one, the celebrity sometimes using that as a pet, that it impacts Indonesian people. They want to copy. That's the big problem now for us. On top of the money and then language change. Language change is something beyond our power. Just to educate people is lost.
So what has the government done to help resolve that issue?
All of this is merah putih.
Government? Sorry,
Yeah.
on the spot.
That's a hard question because when dealing with the government, the big problem is the zoo in Indonesia not doing their job to educate people. If you're coming to the zoo in the United States, for example, you coming and they will say, okay, this is the orangutan, this is the condition of orangutan defeat. If you're doing something, you have to do like this, like this, like this. Indonesia not doing like that. They make invitation to take a breakfast with the orangutan, taking photo with the orangutan. And when the artist make a photo, we taking one artist in Indonesia just a few days ago. They make the photo bright session with the orangutan, and a lot of people pay attention on that. I said to the people, if I taking care of the orangutan, put the orangutan like hugging the orangutan, not more than 100 people will be like, oh, it's nice, I want to be like that. No. But when artist doing that, 1,000. That's the education. And the government said, we give them the right to take money from the people, and this is the part of their business. And now we try to convince the government, this is not right. When you're doing like that, we got the big impact in the wild. Educate people. That's the big one. No, the other one. You have? You want? No? Okay.
So I want to ask you, how are orangutans seen next to the places where they are developing plantations? Because I've heard and I've read that they are considered pests in the wild and they don't want to deal with them. Has this changed in their ideology, in their way of thinking?
That's a part of education too. When we're dealing and we try to working together the palm oil, this is when we want to educate them, the orangutan not a pet and not a pest. 2012, they make a competition to kill one orangutan, one head of orangutan. The company, the palm oil company, will pay you around $50. And when you're searching that who owned the company, is owned by the Malaysian. Sorry. But this is in Indonesia. And no one go to jail. That's why now both try to working together to palm oil. And then we use it best management practices to educate the people, the workers, the orangutan is not a pest. If you find the orangutan like this is the things you have to do. Or they will kill you. It's something that we have to train a lot of people. Not easy job, still challenges. That's why we need smart people working in the NGO. Now maybe for the next time, next 10 years, maybe the smarter people in Indonesia is working with the NGO. Any question? I don't know, moderator choose it.
What would you do if you have students study abroad for 1 month? Like what would students do for 1 month? Say I bring students to your center.
What's your background? If this is for the anthropologists, I will request going to the people who live in outside the forest, educate them. The orangutan is not a pet, but from the anthropologist side. If this is the biology, just go to the forest with us, walk in the forest to monitor the orangutan, to monitor the high conservation value forest in the forest, because we want to make some valuable things, something like, when you protect the orangutan, this is the animal like mammals, like the birds that we could protect it. You have to showing them with the biologists. If you are the veterinarian, stay with us in the rehab center, taking care of the orangutan health. If you are the artist, help us to make a good campaign. Ya Pak? Ini maju sama dulu.
Malah nggak bisa nanya. Just a little question. I thought this orangutan can speak, you know? They have language. Why not?
They have the language like dog with dog. Orangutan with orang, but for us, we cannot understand that.
Right. We have to learn.
They don't have sign language.
I think you're referring to the gorilla, the sign
Oh yeah.
Language.
You have to learn.
To learn how we could understand them, right?
Or
not to learn them and to teach them to speak like we do.
Agree.
Yeah, maybe you have work with the Microsoft, something like that, IT company.
Or University of Washington on the linguistic side.
Why not?
Something like that.
Maybe easier
Do
for you.
research.
That's why now we talk with the zoo. The zoo could make it something like teach the orangutan. They make it like this, and orangutan open the mouth, and they can look at the mouth, and then you can take the sample, something like make a test. And then they teach the orangutan. They can give it the shoulders, and then we take the blood test from that. It's voluntary from that orangutan. Now that we try to working together with the zoo to teach my team doing like that. But on the linguistic, if you have someone, tell it.
Maybe you know about the movies, you know, the film. They have something put in the I don't know, long time ago.
It's a gorilla in the back. I think Coco, the gorilla. They teach them the first gorilla that know how to do the sign
Is it
language.
different DNA with the gorilla?
Gorilla most of the time walking in the ground. Orangutan.
It takes time to go to that route, but it's
possible.
I think that's good sign. Make movie out of it. You change the perception.
But you have to make the right movie of the orangutan, not the movie
No,
like
I'm not talking about movie like Hollywood movie. I'm
Like
talking about
Hollywood movie.
No, not Hollywood.
It's sometimes give the wrong direction.
Yeah, no.
The wrong direction.
Yeah.
How common is it for conservation NGOs to buy land like your model? Is that pretty common in Indonesia?
Need a lot of money to buy land.
Is there
For example, I just want to say like in the palm oil area. When the palm oil wants to open the forest, they buy from the local people. They only need around $500 for 1 hectare, like 5 million rupiah for 1 hectare. But when we need the forest to be forest for the orangutan, they make it triple.
Why?
When I sell it to the palm oil company, I got the money 5, and I could work there to get money. When I give it to the orangutan forest, I'm lose.
But they can do the same thing too. They can work also for your foundation.
Yeah, but when we put the orangutan in the island, it's not massive people working on that area. We need just only 10 people. And then they make it the price higher. Not many NGO brave enough jump into that situation.
Is that like the gold standard of conservation to buy land?
For now, that's only the possible one to save if we fighting with the time.
Sounded like a last resort.
Yeah. Yeah, but
And I'm also the island that you made, the man-made island, that was the first program for the 650 orangutan who got hepatitis, isn't it?
no, 650 is the total of orangutan that we have.
So how many you have already put on those islands, the man-made island?
The man-made island, the small one in the center, is we put it for the 7. Each island I can only put 3 or 4.
Oh, only 3 and 4?
For one island, because this island is only
Less than 10?
Less than 10, because it's only 2 hectares. And then we make it not 5 island. we make it not using one, just using 4, and the 6 months we make rotation and keep one part is.
So how many islands you have now? 5? 7?
We have 5 in the center. We have 3 in the river close to the center, and then we have 6 in the river, far from the center.
So that's one the only thing how.
That's why we call it. It will be sanctuary for the orangutan. But for now, I will use this as a intern forest before they go to the jungle. After graduate, put it here, let them there for 6 months, 1 year, and then we evaluate and then we send to the home. After all of the orangutan go to the forest, this one will be the sanctuary for the orangutan.
Okay, back to the question of Parodi with regard to the role of the government, because you said that you've been for 25 years. So what has been changes policy of the government comparing with the last 2 or 3 years government and the today's government? Is there any change of the role of the government in solving the problem of the first the conservationists and then the deforestations, and what is the role of the private sectors? The government-backed private sector, BUMN, and also the real private sectors who really have their own role in those hutan of Kalimantan. Those who are having the hutan is actually the private one rather than the government. And the roles of the local government, because local government have managed their own money, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah. If you can have it like that, but it's good. But the problem is not like that. Like this island, when we're dealing with the private sector to buy that land, we have to still have more time to dealing with the local government to allow us to use this forest, still forest. Because on the land use planning, this has already become the, what we call it, converted forest for another purposes. And they could make it become the palm oil. When we need them, this area still forest, I and the business agreed together, we have to allow you to start it agreed. Use it for
So
the
it's easy to open the forest rather than preserve the forest.
And there's no preservationists like here in the US where there's a designated preservation
the
area.
problem for the orangutan is because we have the 97% DNA similar. We love the same area. The government, when we designated some conservation area, mostly in the highland.
There is no population there.
No population there. We make it. We call it in Indonesia language tata guna hutan kesepakatan. When we all sepakat.
Do you agree?
Yeah.
MOU.
And then when we found out, when we develop the forest, we cutting the forest, make the palm oil, make the agriculture, make the transmigration, everything, and we know there is a lot of endangered species living there. But land is already studied. That's why now the boss try to convince the palm oil company, okay, let's become part of the solution. Something like the company here, I just say to them, something like this part. It's around 180 hectares. But we open it for the palm oil, it's not 180 hectares. We can open it to the palm oil. Because 50 meters from the river, we still keep it as a forest, right? As a riparian. But when you save it and you give it to the orangutan, you say, I sacrifice 180 hectares for the orangutan. But in truly, honestly, you don't sacrifice 180. But maybe there's only 80. It's something like we try to negotiate with their language for the forest. Yeah, to make it.
Are there any efforts, conscious efforts to educate people in Indonesia with the core problem, which is consuming palm oil in products? So there's certain campaigns here and certain kind of education in the West about educating people and what products can, or what products are sustainable and what products are not. Is there anything like that teaching people what kind of products contain palm oil that is not okay?
With the palm sustainable palm oil that running by RSPO is not the best answer for everything. This is not a good solution, but they are the best from the worst. That's why I said in some of our project is, if you say something no palm oil, we make the fighting become the horizontal, become the orangutan and the people who living in the forest. This is very difficult in Indonesia. That's why we stay and keep the discussion is something like we need responsible palm oil. No matter you are RSPO member or not RSPO member, if you give the responsibility to save forest for the orangutan, you are good.
Great. But what do they get out of it?
You can sleep like a baby in the night. Yeah, that's the question that I got. This is from the RSPO members. I still have 5 minutes. I just want to give you some numbers. This is RSPO members, and this one is not RSPO member. For me, for us, this is about, for this one, when I try to discuss with the owners, the question is like what you said, Pak. What I got? I said to them, you can leave this 50 meters around like this. You not sacrifice 100 hectares. For the palm oil, you just sacrifice 50 hectares, and you can claim 100 hectares. It's one. And then I said to them, please make the key performance indicator for your CEO, not how much revenue you got, but how much benefit you have. It means they have to calculate the cost. For now in business Indonesia, mostly they just only make how much the revenue they have, and the CEO they doesn't care about the cost, about the PR consultant they have. If they have they cut the forest and make the orangutan killing that, they ignore it because they want to get big revenue. That's why we convince the owners, make it the bigger benefit. It means bigger benefit. It could be higher revenue, constant cost, or maybe you can reduce the cost, but you can reduce the revenue, but the cost still lower. And it's a big benefit. Just make the CEO become more headache now.
Yeah, because revenue can come in many different ways.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we're not just talking about you're selling one coconut, one palm, and then you get $1 a piece, right? There are many ways to do it. I mean, you could have been selling the same,
Numbers.
whatever it is, right? And then now, because you are certified as a member and one of the contributors to this organization, you are a lot more responsible environmentally. Now you can charge $1.50, right? For the same amount of work, right? That's a benefit for me.
That's the RSPO doing now.
Exactly.
Give the premium price for people for palm oil doing it.
Are there any other NGOs who are dealing with the orangutan? Because if there's any, you can then make concerted efforts, and then you can ask the government within the whole support by those NGOs with the orangutan conservancies, and then ask the government, ask the local government, ask the private sectors, if there is any.
We try to doing like that with other NGO.
Are there any there?
And what's the challenge?
Foreign, right? Yeah.
The Indonesian or foreign?
Mostly foreign.
How many of them are there?
In Kalimantan, both the other one COP, OFI is based on Canada, and here based on UK. In Sumatra, SHB based on UK, and JSL based on in Europe too, and the other one based on Australia.
Okay, I think there's lots of discussion to maybe have later in the afternoon. We're going to take a quick break now. Please join me in thanking Dr. Sihite for this wonderful work.